My family and I live in the beautiful but cold Canadian countryside, and because of that, we only get to enjoy our pool for a few months each year. But that's about to change, because I've been promising my wife for months that I was capable of building the best pool heater ever. For a fraction of the price, in my 2-car garage and with zero experience welding stainless steel. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Tabarnak.
But ladies and mostly gentlemen, you have to know that this is not my first attempt of building such a heater. Oh no! 2 years ago, I found a few empty barrels and a whole water heater. But I quickly realized that using steel, and in this case, rusted steel, plus add the fact that it's gonna work in chlorinite water, the heater won't stand a chance and shouldn't last very long. So I ditched this idea and started searching for a plan B, which I found on Marketplace for $200. A beautiful pair of beer tanks made out of unknown stainless steel. And here's what I'm planning to do with these 2 tanks. One of the tanks will become the outer shell. I've got a few holes to plug and had 4 legs with a few ports. Should be a walk in the park. For the second tank, well, this one will be chopped into pieces in order to reduce its diameter. That will be the challenging bit. Then I'll add a front flange and a chimney pipe. Final step, but by no means the easiest, inserting the little tank in the big one. Hopefully it will fit like Pop and Mom, and oh yeah, of course, everything needs to be fully welded and leak-proof. So you probably guessed it by now, but the fire will be lit inside the smaller tank. Then water will enter by this bottom inlet, pushed by the pool's pump. Hopefully we'll swirl around the chamber that was created by the 2 tanks and should come out from this outlet. Hopefully hotter than before. At least that's the theory. And because I was still looking for a challenge, I guess, this wood stove will have a secondary burning stage. Yeah, just like modern stoves do. But I'll get into more details later on. And to perform the gargantuous amount of welding, I'll be using this. Our captain gladly sent me this unit years ago, and I think the heater will be the perfect project to test it. It comes fairly well equipped, but without a pedal. Fast forward a few days, and I just received the pedal I bought for this welder. I was about to test the machine for the first time when I realized that the gas line is kinked. No big deal, just splice it and put it back together with the tiniest hose clamp I've got in the shop. Fixing the line made me realize how fragile this gas fitting looked. And I broke it while tightening the cable to the machine. Good job, Viny. What a good start. But a bit of monkey glue should take care of that problem.
Not cool.
And with that, I was ready for my first weld.
A few moments later.
That's nice.
Right, it's probably the ugliest stainless steel weld ever showcased in a YouTube video. But that's my first ever ugliest weld showcase in a YouTube video. You have to keep in mind that even the best welder in the freaking world at one point did its first ugly stainless steel weld. Maybe didn't share it on social media, but with the welder set, let's move on to the plans. And because reducing the diameter of one of the tanks seems to be the more challenging bit, I'll start with this one. Except I can't. I was about to start cutting the outside flange with my homemade CNC plasma when absolutely nothing happened. The machine's computer got a red flashing light, and that's it.
Tabarnak.
And I've got a burned hard drive. Yay? Okay, I don't want to sound like I'm stepping from a problem to another, but truth to the matter, that project had a really rough start. But bear with me, guys.
Yes.
I'll get through this, because you know me, in this shop, I've got a spare of almost everything. And after installing the 18 years old spare hard drive, everything seemed to be working.
Benito. Yeah.
Except I lost all the softwares that ran the plasma machine. Like AutoCAD 2000, which I reinstalled using a CD. Do you remember the last time you used a CD to install something? Okay, I know the topic of this video is on the pool heater and not on my plasma table, but for the 5 of you who wants to know how I run it, here we go. I use AutoCAD to produce or modify parts drawing. Then I run the files in SheetCam to program the patterns that will generate a G-code. That G-code will be read by Mark III. Then this software will send commands to step motors and to the plasma cutter to cut the part itself. Whew. And because I replaced the hard drive, I had to reinstall and reprogram all the softwares, which made me very, very excited.
Yay!
Many unbearable hours later.
Actually 6. 6 hours later, and I was completing the calibration of the machine with a dial indicator.
Nice! Oh yeah!
I'll spare you all the fun that was this past 6 hours, cause I made a video on this plasma table with all the details. Just keep in mind, it's one of my earliest video on this channel, so not my greatest voiceover work, but if you can get past that, there's a ton of useful info for the 5 of you who might be interested. And now for the first try ever. I double-checked that the calibration was good enough and went to town on cutting parts. A day later. FYI, I'm not a full-time YouTuber, and I was planning on building the heater during weekends. But since it's the end of May, every day lost troubleshooting or fixing a machine has a huge impact on when I'll be done with the heater. Plus, I'll only be posting the video once I'm done with the project, meaning that time was ticking fast. Not sure that a pool video in September will perform well. If you ever work with stainless steel, it sucks. If you barely heat up the metal, it kinda hardens instantly, burning your drill bits and blades. But as you know, we're always just a grinder away from success. Or a plasma away from success? I mean, it works too. Here I'm removing all the bits I don't need, because remember, I'll chop this thing down to a bare roll sheet of metal to reduce its diameter, meaning that even that round pipe welded on the edge needs to go. Using this, I quickly made a guiding arm for the plasma gun. The straighter the cut is, the easier it will be to weld back to the flanges. And with the round pipe gun, I made an extra long guide arm thingy in hopes that I'll cut the roll at the same width. By the way, if you like this kind of content and would like to help me promote it, just drop a like and comment. That helps a ton with the algorithm. Thank you! Last step, performing the equivalent of a paniculectomy to the tank. And with that chunk out of the way, now is the best time to clean the inside, which is not such in a tip-top shape. Now these two edges need to touch each other, but, and even though my wife keeps telling me that I'm the strongest man she ever met, apparently I'm not strong enough. But I've got ratchet straps and a welding table, which, well, you'll see throughout this video, I'll brag a bunch about. And this is not just because I sell plans and DXF files on my website of this type of tables. Oh no, sir. That thing was the blessing helping hand needed to succeed with this project. You'll see. Here I'm having an overlap because I'm not really feeling the butt joint for the first weld on the heater. Unfortunately, with only the ratchet straps, it has a teardrop shape, creating a gap impossible to weld. If only I could have a way of pressing on it. Alright, the welding table. And with the two clamps pushing down on the tubing, I should be able to close that gap and weld it. Okay, it's not perfect, but with a bit of tappy tap tap, I should bring the gap close to 0. Final check, making sure I'm not creating a giant cone here.
C'est pas une belle suture.
And it's ugly.
Mais ça en est une.
And that's just the first one of many. Then I remove the straps to do the final weld. Yeesh, ugh, holy crap, it looks like I solder it with tin. And this is how I developed the biggest respect for the welders out there that can melt stainless steel into a beautiful row of pearls. If you overlook the fact that it's not perfectly round, I still managed to keep the diameter within an eighth of the target dimension.
Hey, not bad. It's not perfectly round. Close enough.
Right, before capping this cylinder, I need to install plates to support the second burning stage. Quick checkup with the back plate. The baffle is in the chimney hole? What?
Là, ça marche pas. À l'envers.
It's upside down, Viny. Come on.
Hey!
Here I want to attach the front flange, which is round, to this not round cylinder, using once again
The Super Welding Table!
what was that? Sorry. Then I tacked one side and push on the other side, which is the pointy bit of the teardrop shape. Slowly massaging the cylinder into a rounder shape.
Haha! Nice!
And that's ugly weld number 2. I mean, right, some bits are okay-ish. With the front flange in, I was able to finish the second stage support. And for the bottom plate, you guessed it, I did the same trick to produce ugly weld number 3. Final part to fabricate was the chimney pipe, and my old homemade sheet metal roller will be perfect for the job. Something critical on this build is that all the welds need to be leak-proof, because as you know, water and fire don't mix well. If you think about it, once the two things are joined together, some of those welds will be very difficult to reach and repair if they leak. Luckily, I came up with a pretty clever solution using, once again, my welding table. I know, that's again the table, I warned you. I sealed-ish the chimney pipe using a bulkhead fitting and an old tire chamber, and on the table I used a huge rubber pad. And with all the clamps I had, I did my best to seal the modified tank to the table. Then with a soapy solution, I checked for leaks, which I found. One. And yeah, I know the setup was far from sealed, but that didn't matter with the constant flow of air in the tank, because that worked pretty well. I'm already 4 days in, and I still have the door's gasket seal flanges to install to complete the smarter tank. If I could put this section behind me, I think the project could pick up a faster pace. Because you know, with the rough start the project had, I kinda need it mentally. But things were about to get pretty hot in the shop. Yep, TIG transfers a lot of heat, and I should step up my gloves game for this process, because that one hurt. I also managed to get better welds. You have to know by now that my YouTube algorithm is just about how to weld stainless steel, and I realized that the cup provided with the welder was way too small. I was using a 6, and I bought a 10 made from glass. And now the argon flow is way better. With the seal in, ladies and mostly gentlemen, let me introduce you to the pièce de résistance, the door, la porte.
Oh, the sound! So satisfying.
Oh yeah, I bargained for this one as part of the 2-tank deal, and I'm really digging its submarine and heavy-duty look.
Oh! Sweet.
Despite the downsides of working with stainless steel, one thing I really appreciate is the combination of small thick welds and no paint. It allows us to create little works of art, like this beautiful handle.
That's my Tinky Winky wrench.
That's lovely. And with the latch.
That ain't going nowhere.
Now, I'm finally done with the small tank. So let's quickly tackle the big one. Right. I got bored of cutting legs using the grinder and started using the plasma. And because I wanted to cut the legs as flush as possible to the tank, I maybe blew through it? Well done, Viny. Unfortunately, these tanks are far from new, so a bit of cleaning is mandatory. Come on, Canon, focus. And that's good. No, you lost it. The big job on this tank will be to create ports for, let's say, a drain valve, a pressure gauge, and so forth. That coupling nut with the bit of pipe came with the tanks. And the threads are exactly what I needed, 3/4 NPT. And with a bit of modification, these will work perfectly for the heater. Remember the plasma mistake? Gone. Yeah, I kept it with the relief valve outlet. For the water outlets, the only thing I could find is that dairy pipe for a few bucks on Amazon. To create the swirling motion, I installed the pipe tangent to the drum, and to get the right shape, I used the tank as the template. Which I nailed first try. Nope. Better. For the outlet, I'll use the existing drain pipe of the tank and weld the 1.5" to it. Did you know that you can also buy an accessories package? And in this package, I designed an adjustable bracket, very useful to create fast assembly jigs. In this case, I use it to weld the base plate to the leg. The outside of the tank was not in so good condition, but the inside is even worse. Here comes another very, very fun part. So far, I'm loving this project so much. By the way, if one of you is free next weekend, I'm always looking for volunteers to join the fun. Anyone interesting? Okay, now it looks like a pig, but a shiny one. Again, for volunteer work, please send me an email at this address. To support the weight of little tank inside big tank, I'll add this support, because I don't want the front flange and the chimney pipe to take all the load. And this is how I started mastering the knee gas control method. Oops, sorry for the view. And finally, let's introduce the little tank in the big one. Would you fart? Hey! Then I put it up to see the fit with the front flange, and it's not good. Yep, huge gap here. The reason is that the support is way too high and pushes the flange away from the big tank hedge. Maybe I could softly massage small tank where the support is to lower it down. I'm sure smashing on webs shouldn't do any harm.
Oh, my back's gonna hurt tomorrow morning. Oh, that's gonna be fun. Oh, alright, almost done.
Nope, still too high. Well, so yeah, let's get rid of the entire support. You, bye-bye. Third time's the charm, I guess. Yeah, it's way better now. I still have a gap, but it comes from the heat deformation from the welding. I'm simply gonna weld, smash, and repeat.
1 hour later.
Would you look at that? It's not half bad. There's even a 1-inch long section that looks like it's been done by a pro. To add the new support, I created a belly button in big tank, and with small tank fully welded in place, it was fairly easy to set the right height. Then I cut at the excess.
Hey!
I knew it would have been impossible to make a hole in the big tank to fit perfectly the chimney pipe, so I oversized it. To cap it, I needed to measure the chimney pipe exactly where it's meeting with the big tank. So I made myself a big outside or inside caliper. And with the precise measurements, it was a piece of cake to make flanges that fit perfectly. Would you look at those welds? I'm getting there, guys, except that big blob, where I blew through that chimney pipe. Finally, it was time to plug all the parts and perform a leak test over the entire heater. And I found only 11. Yeah, you thought I was about to say 1, right? Oh, I wish. And, of course, some of them were at the freaking bottom of the tank. Even though I previously checked that joint, I don't know, something must have happened between the two leak tests. So that the fun begins. Again. Yeah, sorry for the view. I mean, the few outsides were really easy to fix. But those inside.
Many unbearable hours later.
5. It took me 5 hours to sit a shot, but I managed to get them all. And here I'm applying an high temp caulking, just as a last resort safety barrier. And with that, the day came to an end. Yep, here I'm getting a bit out of juice. Not only because of the amount of work I've been doing so far, but also because I realized I made 2 major noob mistakes. The first and easiest one to fix is with the outlet. Even though utilizing the existing tank drain seemed like a great idea, it's not. And let me show you why using this 2-liter bottle. At the time, my thinking was that at full pressure, the chamber will fill up just fine. And because the outlet is located in the middle, it should pick up water from top to bottom. But what happens, let's say, if the breeze clogs the pump's pickup point? With lower pressure, water will not be able to fill the chamber up, and heat will be lost, reducing its efficiency. So the middle outlet has to go and be replaced by one at the top, which even with low pressure will let the chamber fully fill itself. I added a flange to the existing drain hole to help solve my next and biggest problem. Yeah, really not proud of myself on this one. So far, I was able to weld everything without purging with argon gas, removing mechanically the oxide form on the backside of the welds. But that's not true regarding the chimney flange and the amount of leak repairs I've done to the tank. I don't have access to those, and I'm sure that their backside is fully cruded. Meaning that in chlorine water combined with heat, this thing will turn itself into a bucket of rust in no time. Plus, if you had the fact that the tanks were far from rust-free from the get-go, if I don't do something about it, this heater will be good for the scrap pile next year. So I bit the bullet and bought epoxy pool paint at a premium price. That's a lot of And for those of you who think that heat will burn right through this paint, well, let's find out. Using my ultra-thin gauge stainless steel barbecue, even at 400 degrees freedom height, with a constant flow of water, it's absolutely fine to the touch. The water is easily absorbing all the heat, reducing the surface temperature. I even reduced the flow to a small stream of water, and it worked just fine. Unlike stagnant water, that bottom pan got really hot, real fast.
Ah, c'est chaud, là.
So as long as I have a constant flow of water coming in the tank, the epoxy will survive. Using the existing drain, I poured the paint and with the tank slightly tilted to one side, ensure that one section of the smaller tank was thoroughly coated. Then I tilt the tank a bit more to cover another section of the small tank and repeat the process. By now, any excess paint should settle over the front flange, which sits at the bottom in this orientation. Then I made a temporary rotisserie with tubes clamped to the welding table. Flipping the drum on itself will coat the inside of big tank. Next, I put it upside down to coat the rear end and drain the excess epoxy. Seeing that amount of leftover paint, I decided to go for round 2. I mean, at this price, better make sure that the entire chamber is thoroughly coated. This is the final setup, allowing any excess epoxy to drip off, and because the manufacturer recommends letting the paint dry for 5 to 7 days for outdoor pools and 10 to 14 days for indoor ones, I made sure to have a good airflow using the fan from the thermal forming project. Meanwhile, I fabricated the second stage baffle out of steel. Steel is easier to me to modify if necessary. The second stage served to reintroduce fresh air, igniting the hot exhaust gases that still contain unburned combustible matter. At least that's the theory. For sure, this part might need a bit of R&D down the line, so steel is better for future improvements. Right, we'll let the paint dry and get the yard ready for the heater. You might ask yourself, Viny, how can you spend so much time on your projects and videos and still have such a nice lawn? Well, that's no secret, because last year, Mowing sent me their Luba 2, a wonderful all-wheel drive robotic mower. I even made a video testing its limit and I made it walk my dog. Hey! Well, sort of. And here's an update a year later. I still love it. For real, I think the result looks way better with the Luba than when I use my tractor to do the mowing. It's truly a game changer. I don't have to find time to mow the lawn anymore. For example, while I was prepping a base in my yard for the heater, the Luba was mowing the grass for me. And this year, because Mowing knew how much I love my mower, they sent me their new Yuka Mini. This little guy is perfect for urban and suburban homes, handling lawns up to 8,600 square feet. I just love how simple and easy the setup is. You install the charging base and antenna, and you're ready to go. And this time, to show just how easy it is to set up, I asked my son to do it. And with no cables to bury around your property, it literally took us just minutes to get the mower up and running. A new feature on the Yuka Mini is its use of AI to set the perimeter, which we just had to try for ourselves. Again, we were impressed by how well this feature worked right from the start. Okay, the mower clearly told me I should do something about the invasive grass creeping into my driveway. I know, it's on my summer to-do list. Setting the cutting height is easier than ever. Just press this big button and set the desired height and off it goes. Just like my Luba 2, the Yuka Mini performed flawlessly. Unfortunately, I had the Luba mow that patch of grass just a few days ago, so the Yuka didn't have much left to chew on. And this thing is so quiet. The mowing sound you're hearing, that's not the Yuka, that's my neighbor's gas mower. I actually had to wait for him to finish mowing its lawn before I could record the Yuka's sound.
Yeah, that's it. It's pretty quiet.
It mowed that entire section using only 20% of its battery. They call it mini, but it's definitely capable. With the Yuka's Mini's more affordable price, Mowing is making robotic mowers more accessible than ever. By the way, they just released a new robotic toy, the Spino E1 Pool Cleaner. I just made a pool heater. Next step is a pool cleaner robot. So Mowing, I can't wait to try it out. Wink, wink. And finally, Mowing is running an Independence Day promotion until July 6th. The Yuka Mini is up to 20% off, and they're also offering a free garage to customers while supplies last. Link down below. Right, the paint must be dry by now. And with that, it's time for final assembly. I know it's hard to tell by this footage, but the coverage looks amazing. And I have really high hopes that it will work. Today is the perfect day to test the heater. Although it's sunny, the temperature will stay on the cold side throughout the day, just like early fall, which is exactly when I plan to use the heater the most. And with the pool at 69 degrees Fahrenheit, we're starting the test with exactly the conditions I was hoping for. I finalized the assembly with a row of refractory bricks to insulate the fire from any moisture rising from the cold bottom tank. And I made sure to leave a large enough gap to allow airflow through the front vents. One cool feature I designed is the option of pulling out the baffle's second stage, allowing the exhaust gases to escape more directly to the chimney. Once the fire is set, you just push it right back in. Now let's send water to the heater for the first time. And I've got a leak. Apparently the standard pool hoses are slightly bigger than 1.5 inches, but I took care of it the day after with a bit of sealant. Starting this fire early in the morning gave me a sense of tranquility, as if I was camping. Unfortunately, I quickly lost that zen attitude when I went to get my camping chair.
Hello, beauty.
I know she's far from big, but when you're not expecting any visits this early in the morning, she scared the crap out of me.
All right. Bye-bye, big python.
It's no proof that second stage is working, but seeing the flames taking the path you envisioned, well, we're up to a good start. And here I'm trying to show you that the second stage inlets were creating suction. Again, that's a good sign. And the front door got pretty hot, pretty fast, when the outside stayed perfectly cold. So far, I'm not worrying a bit about the epoxy surviving the heat. So let's enjoy the moment, shall we? Right, let's get down to business. So we started at 69, and every 45 minutes or so, I'll come back to check the fire and take a temperature reading. On every single time, the temp had bumped by 1 degree, until at noon it reached 79 degrees. 10 more than our starting point, and then suddenly, something I hadn't seen in over 5 years happened. The wife went for a swim.
Mais ça arrive pas souvent que ma mounette est dans l'eau.
You might think I'm joking here, but knowing how rare that situation was, I knew I succeeded.
Yay!
Plus, if you had the rise of 10 degrees on a not so hot day, I couldn't be happier. The next day, we put the solar pool cover on, and with the heater, we reach 83 degrees on the meat thermometer and 85 on the maybe more official pool ones. To my surprise, the water coming out of the heater will only capture enough heat to be raised by 2 to 3 degrees. And this is me trying to show it to you with the pool being at 83 and the pool's outlet at 85. By the way, this is how the water is going to the heater. It comes in at the bottom from the pump and filtration system, then returns from the heater to the chlorine system, and finally to the pool. And yes, I could reduce the flow by limiting the amount of water going into the heater and allowing some to bypass directly to the pool. The return water will indeed be hotter, but when you think about it, once the heated water mixes with the bypass water, the overall temperature should still average out on the 2 to 3 degrees increased seen while running at full flow. Because at the end of the day, what matters is how much energy the water is absorbing from the fire's heat, and reducing the flow will not increase that absorbing factor. In simpler terms, a slow flow means less water with more energy, while a high flow means more water with less energy. And I believe both balance out in the end when mixed back together with the pool's water. But I prefer running more water in the heater to keep the overall system temperature down. But hey, let me know in the comments how wrong I am. So far, everything was performing as it was intended to be, except for the second stage. Yep, I never saw many flames coming out of the hose as it's supposed to. And I'll try to show it to you, but with the Lexan's reflection, it's kinda hard to see. If anyone has a clue why it's not working, let me know down in the comments. And for sure, I could have gone a different route and buy an all-electric heat pump for a few $100 on Marketplace. But I just couldn't wrap my head around paying for electricity when I have piles and piles of wood that I need to get rid of one way or another. Plus, good luck doing this with your electric heat pump.
C'est chaud.
By the way, on the third day, we finally got a proper summer heat wave. And with just the solar cover, no heater, we hit 88 degrees. I bet with the heater, I could turn this pool into a real spa. And that's nuts. Now let's talk cost. So the tanks were $200. Add another $200 for the epoxy paint and another $100 for the chimney pipes, valve and gauges. Finally, for the use of 2 full small argon bottles and some stainless steel filler rods, let's add another $100, bringing the grand total to $600. I know it might seem like a lot of money, but during my research, I came across a Quebec company making exactly the same type of heater at a pretty premium price. Before building mine, I couldn't believe someone would spend that much on this kind of heater. But after I built it, I understood how much time and knowledge were required to produce something like this. And now I honestly think it's worth every penny. Overall, this project is a success. Is it the best pool heater in the world? I don't know. Probably not. But it was a great platform to learn about wood stoves, heat transfer, and most importantly, TIG welding. And I do believe I still have a lot to learn before I can call myself a proper stainless steel TIG welder, because I'm not, but the experience was incredibly valuable. The Arc Captain TIG 200p AC/DC performed flawlessly, and if you're a home gamer like me, you should definitely check it out for yourself. Finally, don't forget to like this video, and thanks to Memotion for sponsoring it. Go check their Yuka's beanies, cause this robotic mower really changed my summer workload for the best. Alright, I'm Viny. See you soon.